If you don't know me, I'm Becky Chilcott, and I'm the events curator here. It's really lovely to have everyone here today. I would just like to say a huge thank you to Google and the Wink Into Words Society Charitable Trust for their generosity in sponsoring this lecture. As we are live streaming this event, please bear with us if we have any technical difficulties. If it happens, we will try to rectify this as quickly as possible. For anyone on Zoom, if you are experiencing any technical issues your end, sometimes the old trick of logging in and out again does, out and in, not in and out, does help again, you know, or turning it off and on, as you might hear in the IT crowd. So if that does happen, and it still doesn't work. Basically, we are recording this lecture, so you will all be sent the Zoom link to rewatch in your own time, so don't stress too much if you're missing out. What have I got to say next? So, to our Zoom attendees, can you please make sure that you're all muted? And for our in-person guests, please can you make sure that your mobile phones are turned on to silent? We don't mind you taking photos during the event, but please make sure you don't use a flash, as it will interfere with the live streaming. So for anyone attending in person, it gets a bit complicated. Are you in person? Are you online? But for in-person people, we'd just like to make you aware that if the fire alarm does go off, this will be one continuous bell. If you're at home and your fire alarm's off, you'll have to deal with it yourself. So, you know, hopefully you'll be prepped and all okay. So for in-person people, the meeting point, if there is a fire, is through reception and through into the courtyard. And if the fire is basically in reception, we will direct you down past the gents' toilets, past the theatre bar and out onto the street, and we'll meet in the courtyard that way. So hopefully you're now all prepared if it all goes horribly wrong. But hopefully we'll be absolutely fine. So what have I got to say next? So, I always use this opportunity to let people know about what fantastic things we have at St. Bride coming up soon. So, our next talk is online only, and it's on the power of print, and it's basically to coincide with our Ways Goose that happens every year. So we're going to be hearing from 3 absolutely fantastic speakers from around the globe. So we have Star-Shaped Press, the Letterpress Collective, and Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. And it's on the 27th of April. I think that date is wrong. I think it's actually the 19th of May. So apologies for my typo. Today is the 27th of April. You'd think this was intentional, but it's all not. It's not here for the laughs. So basically, it's the 19th of May, and the correct date is on our website. So if you'd like to know more information, then please do go on our website and have a look. Tickets are £3 or £5, so it's all really, really cheap if you're struggling with the current energy crisis or anything like that. So we also have, on Thursday the 12th of May, this date is correct, we have a free open evening where the library and the print workshop will be open, so you can come and find out a bit more about what we do at St. Bride. It's in person from 6 till 9 p.m, and there's no booking needed, so it's always a really good fun. You can come and have a go at printing, chat to our fantastic chapel who run the workshop, and they're brilliant, and just a really good laugh, and you can find out more about lovely letterpress things that go on here and all the fantastic stuff that goes on in the library. And as I've mentioned, we have our Ways Goose coming up, which is on the 22nd of May, which is a Sunday from 11 till 4. And again, this is in person, no booking needed. Come along and have a lovely time. And there will be some fantastic cake on sale. Not as good as Jill's normal cakes because she's unwell and not able to make them this year. But we have some good people lined up to bake in her wake. And the cake is a bigger part of it as the letterpress. So it's definitely worth coming along if you can. And also, our library is open every Wednesday, and we have 3-hour slots, so you can come from 12 till 3 or 3:30 till 6:30 by appointment only. So if you would like to come and explore what we've got upstairs, you can email us at library@sbf.org.uk or go to our website to find out more. And finally, if you would like to learn more about letterpress and actually get hands-on and do a course, we hold a range of courses for all abilities, and you can find out much more about this on our website again, or you can email the address that you can see up on the screen. That email address is correct and not a typo, so that's all good. So I think now I would just like to say a very special hello and welcome to Justin Howell's parents, Brian and Mimi, who are unable to join us this evening, but they will be watching the recording at a later date. And so we'd just like to say a very big welcome and love and big hugs to you both. And we miss you having you here, but everyone at St. Bride misses you, and we hope you enjoy Lara's lecture as much as we do. And so finally, I am just going to swap the slides over for ease. And then I would like to welcome to the stage Dr. Catherine Dixon, who is going to introduce this evening, probably with more professionalism than me. So thank you very much.
Who died very suddenly and unexpectedly, aged just 41, in February 2005. It's hard to believe that it was 17 years ago. The gap he left is still very much present. In 1999, when the library then faced serious threats to its future, Justin, along with former librarian James Mosley, reanimated the Friends of St Bride and inspired a spirit of volunteer, perseverance and persistence, which has helped bring us to where we are today, still here. A valuable contribution indeed to the story of survival of this wonderful library, community, and all the learning it in turn inspires. But through his own scholarship, Justin also continues to come to many a researcher's rescue. Only in the past month, I have found myself reaching for Justin's book, Johnston's Underground Type, and there are many more books and articles worthy of reaching out for in a scholarly hour of need. Justin's typographic enthusiasms were wide-ranging and committed, and I have no doubt he would very much enjoy the work of tonight's speaker, Lara Captan. I can remember speaking to him when he was working at the Type Archive in South London about the importance of making knowledge practicable through sharing skills and understanding from actual doing. And that spirit of practice very much underpins Lara's work. History and theory combine through making, through inquiry, through experimentation to generate new insights and possibilities for Arabic letterforms. Central to Lara's practice is sharing what she learns. She taught in Beirut and since moving to the Netherlands has co-founded with Kristyan Sarkis the educational program Arabic Type Design. Two of my favourite people in one educational programme. It's a win-win. It is a huge pleasure and such a treat to have her here, especially because she's a bit poorly. She has an 11-month-old and she's got nursery virus number 3 this month. So welcome a slightly croakier version, but please join me in giving her a very, very warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Catherine. Such a nice introduction. I'm honored. Thank you, Becky, for all your support and for bringing me here to this lovely venue. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to people on Zoom, online, for also attending. So let's start. Let me just get what I need over here. I did not know Justin Hoos, but I hear he's a... Am I supposed to bring this closer? Oh. Oh. I would like to walk around. I've got a mic here. I can walk around, away.
I think for in-person people. Sorry, everyone.
Does this work for everybody? And online, if I'm here? Or is it too much? Shall I keep talking? It's fine. Or I can just talk like, I'm sure everybody hears me here, right? I can also use my wonderful voice that is working so well tonight. I apologize if I cough. I apologize if I'm an elephant and need to blow my nose. I'm sorry. You might hear this every now and then. Let me get started. So, small introduction for those of you, and when thinking of this, I thought maybe in Lebanese, you're asking yourself, Min hey, who is this person? And that's why I wrote, who am I? I translated it into who am I? And then I was like, how am I going to answer that now? It was the last sentence I made in this presentation, and maybe at the end of it, you will understand why my subconscious decided that it was going to be this, because I don't, and I cannot answer this question, actually, but I will tell you what I love to do. I love to collaborate with people. This was a collaboration with a friend. It's a lettering piece that is made to be on a shoe, laser engraved. My friend, Christina Zwain, owner of Kinamania, shoe label and leather goods, designed this derby revival kind of shoe, and she told me, I really want to work with you, and we, you know, how with friends you talk about it for years and it just never happens. And it happened, and in that moment she was diagnosed with breast cancer, so it became even more heavy in a way, and I was like, okay, we need to, and she kept going, so I thought, okay, we need to do this, and this is our kind of project together to get out of it, and well, this is the outcome. This was finished in 2019, I believe. And similar collaboration, also in 3D. I love these experimental projects. It's with, this one was with Asif Khan, the architect, London-based. He was commissioned by Expo Dubai 2020 that became 2021 to make, to design the public realm, the public walkways of Expo, where people would just walk and sit. And he decided, since it's going to be in an Arab country, why not make script benches? So I took the Shikaste style in honor of his Pakistani origin, made it low contrast, and we worked together with product designers and the architects to design elevation, depth of the seat, which had influence on the form, of course, and the contrast level. And I was there in December to finally see these 10-meter benches in person, and I really enjoyed a family sitting in an elongation, having their meal. And I also enjoyed that they're actually subtle. You don't really see that it's a word when you're walking. Only when you're closer, you're like, oh, okay, what are these? And my favorite moment was when a child was testing all the different heights. He's like, oh, I can sit here. Oh, this is higher, because of course we had different heights made for different people. So these are a few examples of the words, and they all mean a value of one of the values of the UAE. We wanted to make a poem that you could see from space, but the client decided otherwise. Oh well. And my last project was for YouTube. I did a branding typeface, a companion of the Latin, a loose companion. So this was really fun. And for me, my first commercial project in OpenType technology, and it won a TDC award. And it was a big event for me because I was fighting OpenType technology all of my career until now. So it means different things that I will discuss in a while. But I'm happy with the outcome in a way. It has a sans on the left, and a kid's version on the right, where I expanded the proportions. I always thought that the typefaces in Arabic typefaces have such big proportions, like up until today. Like, they look childish to me. In a way, some people find them modern, so this is a big discussion. But I was like, let me test it, and let's see what happens if you have two different proportional systems. So that was it for me. And today I decided, since this is a memorial lecture, to commemorate Justin Hose, I would like to commemorate Arabic type designers throughout history who made great impact, I believe, in the field. And I picked a few, and so we're going to blitz a bit in time and contexts and shapes, and well, celebrate Arabic. But before we celebrate anything, we celebrate the script before getting to type. And I hope I will not lose you here, but here we go. I will do my best. Arabic script is actually, it's an art form, and it was developed as an art form and perfected as an art form. It's almost the only art form that exists in the Arabic scripted world, or besides patterning. So you can imagine the energy that goes into writing when you have people thinking and creators making and craftsmen using only the script as their expression, visual expression. So as an example, between the 10th and 13th centuries, the proportion styles were invented. You see these red dots? These are proportions of the letters. And there are different styles. This is a group of 2. They come with a text version over here. And they come in pairs. And they have a display version over here. which to me is pretty innovative for that moment in time where you're already thinking of hierarchy in text. So it's pretty early on in humanity. And this was a special moment also for the Islamic world. It was probably one of the most important periods of enlightenment where they had inherited knowledge from the Greeks and translated it. And so in Persia and in the Arab world, you had a lot of thinkers, mathematicians, astronomers, theologians, spiritualists, actually lots of scholarship happening, lots of thoughts being developed. The notion of algorithm was invented then, and it is an honor of the name of the man who invented it, Al-Khwarizmi. It became algorithm. And so it's not surprising that proportioned styles, a bit more kind of studied, were created. They were perfected throughout hundreds of years. They were not born as amazing as this. So this is later in Turkey, the latest moment where you could find really this style. This is the naskh, and it's often used as a foundation for many of the typefaces that are designed for text in most of the Arabic scripted world, even though the flavors are a bit different. So even in Persia, it is still a reference for body text. So if I'm looking from a person who does not know the script, you can notice that Arabic is connected, but there are points where it doesn't connect. So this is one word, so you have connected letters and disconnected letters in one script. We read, of course, from right to left and right from right to left. It is a discontinuous script, meaning the calligrapher will lift his hand in the middle of a letter action. And then you have a lot of specific mechanisms, for example, cascading, where this letter asks to have a connection from the top and not just a horizontal one like these. This is a medial letter where it's connected horizontally. And, well, there are a lot of things going on here, like real ligatures, like this one and that one, but these are also just connections. So there's in the vocabulary with time, we make, in type, there have been sort of incorrect nuances. I think we call them ligatures, everything ligatures, but they're not. They're connections. It is how Arabic is, in a way. I'm sure I had something else to say over here. Never mind. So now to the display version. It shows many of the qualities of a display. Higher contrast. You could see over here, like more attention to little minute details. For example, this stroke does not touch really exactly the head or this side of the stroke. This is actually a final form in a medial position. So in Arabic, you can do things that are pretty unconventional. So where it would normally stop over here or over here in isolated form, they're like, whoop, let's make it continue. And this is one of the freedoms I really admire in Arabic script, which they're not free, they're rule-based, but still, comparing to other scripts in the world, you have a lot more malleability. And then, that was a script. The printing press was invented. And I will go through portraits of printers and punch cutters and type designers in time. So when you have a machine, it means you need a certain form of order. You need to understand how a writing system works in order to mechanize it. And then there are the limits of the machine. So later on in Arabic, this became the type case for one font, this is 14-point naskh, a bit reduced. So I took this photo, it's a bit blurry. It's the only one I have and the only one that I will have because this printing shop is now closed. The man who owned it passed away and his sons sold all the sorts and everything and did not continue his practice, which they tried, but it's difficult. And so instead of in Latin, you have a very nice small case that has everything, including punctuation. In Arabic, it's not Chinese, which is good. So it's not the whole room, but still, I was watching him like, oh wow! Like I did an apprenticeship in this type shop, and it's called Ras Beirut Typopresse. And I had to write down in which case, okay, there's this. They made them into ligature. There's this shape, okay, and then so I had to memorize that. Because of course, printing is a tedious task. You have to pick the letter, put the spacing, put everything back. Of course, do the layout first, and then start again. Which brings me to Grandjean. We're in the 1500s. I used to always complain about Grandjean. And about a lot of the European printers, and when we're young, we're agitated. And I came to, realize this year somehow, wait a minute, or thanks to Titus Nemet's book, actually, Arabic Typemaking in the Machine Age, he sort of made me empathize with these printers. And also while preparing this lecture, I thought, okay, we're in the 1500s, it's the Renaissance. How do these people have access to manuscripts and resources? And where are they getting their material, the ink, the paper, the metal? How much time do they take to cut a letter, to understand the letters, the script, the rules? I was told the rules, like I was offered them on a silver platter or a golden one by Thomas Milo, whom I will talk about later. But these people had to sit there and be like, okay, what's going on here? And in a script they don't know. Anyway, in that moment, in the 1500s, there were 5 impressions made only in Arabic, of which a Quran, which failed miserably, and the first book ever printed, the Book of Hours, and then this one, where the type is cut by Francesco Zanetti, this is one of the books of the Jesuits. The Jesuits they have a mission to convert people to Christianity, especially in the Near East. This was important in that moment, and also in different parts of the world. And so that's why books in Arabic were being printed. The first printed books in Arabic for the first 200 years of existence of Arabic type were made and cut only exclusively by Europeans. No native had ever cut a font. So that's actually particular. And so the Pope, Gregory XIII, was unhappy with these fonts because the feedback was coming from the Near East that they're terrible, we don't want to read them. And so he thought, okay, we need to up our game in a way. And they asked a very talented person and designer, Robert Grandjean, who he had lived in different places and worked in different, so Antwerp and Lyon, where he comes from, and Paris, and then in Rome at the Medici Press, where it was founded, worked as a punch cutter and type designer printer. And this is his first Arabic font, the Palestine. This is 1580, and Henry Verlier, who describes this story, he says it's not one of his best, but I actually really disagree with him. To me, it's his best work, being the earliest one. And so Grandjean was offered a lot, free housing, pretty good money monthly for doing this job. He had access to manuscripts brought by Giovan Raimondi, who was the production manager kind of at the Medici Press. He had traveled to the Middle East and brought back some manuscripts, and then that's how Grandjean could get access to information on how to do this. How do you do this in that moment? And in hindsight, he did a great job. The script grammar, so in Arabic it's called Qawaid al-Khat, the rules of writing and connecting the letters, because every letter it has a specific way, a specific shape in a specific moment of script. And it's not only the 4 positions of Arabic, so Arabic will have this initial position, medial, these are all medials, medial, Final position, isolated, so with space. Initial, medium, final, isolated, yeah. 4 positions, but always a different letter, different shape, or rather different joint. It's, I always give the example of like a human. If you line up humans and they all hold hands, and you're with a child and then with an adult or a very, very tall person, your arms will be in a certain way, your head is the same. But then if you change the order, your arms will go in a different way, but your head will stay the same. So this is what happens in Arabic all the time. And so to give you the script model, which is in Decotype Nasr, it's like a true kind of digitization or digital interpretation of the Nasr script I showed you earlier. And this is Grandjean's example. The grammar, so this is the initial letter. Second letter, this letter changes all the time. So this letter, it's a tooth, is similar to that one. The dots are just differentiate the letter. Also similar to this one, but they all have a different shape because of the letters that come after it. So it's raised whenever it's before that one because this one has teeth. So to disambiguate, it has to go up. I'm not going to go on about this, but just to tell you, it's very accurate, but also kind of funny that here you have a slight slant, so it leans a bit, whereas he has a steady baseline and he sort of made this fly up, like, ooh, I need to catch this from the top, cascading connection. So he did a funny trick there. And to show you a calligraphic model by Hafiz Osman, master Turkish Ottoman calligrapher, and Grandjean's type, just as a comparison, he stayed true to the slant of Arabic, but then you can see a bit lower contrast, a bit more, bigger proportions, and it's not perfect. Like it's very shaky in a way. Also, Grandjean did something very particular, which is he put the dot of the noon in the middle of it, whereas in Arabic, noon here, the dot flies above, and this became a European thing. From this moment, 1500 until everybody copied him. It's like, it happens in Maghribi, in Moroccan script, but it's funny. So after Grandjean, and Grandjean was copied by all the European cutters, Thomas Erpenius, also in UK, really everybody. He was a major, very influential in Arabic types cut in Europe. And I didn't speak of the most important thing. It's like, why were they cutting Arabic fonts in Europe? So it was Rome, it was the Medici, it was the 1500s. The Ottomans had taken Constantinople. The Christians were scared. So the Reconquista happened on the other side in Spain. And then the Roman Catholics were sort of kind of competing with the Protestants in the Roman territories for souls in the Near East. And you have to print books. It's propaganda. In order to propagate knowledge and propagate ideas, you have printing. It's great and it's terrible at the same time. So they needed books, and they exclusively did liturgy in the Medici press, and Arabic scientific books, so to tell people about their own knowledge. So that was kind of, and that remained all over the history of printing in Europe, the main objective. And then the press arrived, or Ibrahim Mutafarrika, a Hungarian emigre to the Ottoman Empire. He was a scholar, a writer, a soldier, and a kind of a military man. He believed that in the moment of decline of the Ottoman Empire, which was in that moment, the army should innovate, but also that the Ottomans should adopt the printing press because it's a very powerful tool. And he wrote a petition to the Sultan by recommendation of a friend. And in that petition, he writes, I'll read it here. The famine of books will be at an end. All nations will be able to acquire books at low cost What glory for our empire and what prayers for its perpetuity will be made when they see so many good books which communicate knowledge to them, of which till then they had been destitute. This motive alone should suffice for our invincible emperor, you always have to do this in the Middle East, to protect and permit the establishment of printing. European rulers have recognized the importance of works written in Arabic, Persian, and Turkish, and have printed books in all languages, but the books are filled with errors and the type is ugly. So he goes on by saying that printing is a very powerful tool if it has the power to spread knowledge. Therefore, if we in the Ottoman Empire adopt the printing press, the Europeans, they will catch up, and then they will take this knowledge and we will not have it anymore, which is a major political tool. It's been used all the time, still in use until today, to take people to take knowledge away. Not going to get political now. But the Sultan accepted, but he had to consult the higher religious power, the Mufti, his name, Sheikh Abdullah. So the Mufti, Sheikh Abdullah, had to give his okay for the printing press to come to Constantinople, or it was Istanbul, I think. And so he said, no, this is a very good thought, but we will only print secular books. Religious books will stay in the hands of the calligraphers because we have 4,000 calligraphers on territory and they need jobs. and so that's how it happened. And he made these books, like 10, 15. It took about 2-3 years for them to actually have a font made and print the first book. It took Grandjean 7 years, and he was already 65 in the moment he started. So, but Mutafarrika had a bit more means, and it's much more stable. The typeface is much more stable, and by the way, I forgot to put this letter, sorry. So you can see the model, and the proportions are smaller. It's still shaky. You can really see the printing effect, and you can really see, guys, the printing press. Cuts letters vertically. Arabic is a horizontally connected script. Do we think this machine is adapted to this writing system? But that is unfortunately not a question we could ask until the digital age, and I'll get to that later. So, some improvement. Grandjean, Mutafarrika, the script, and you could see, I don't know if it shows, do you see that there's a kind of evolution? But we get to the master, the true master. And I'm happy Thomas Milo introduced me to this man, or his work. Ohannes Mohandissian, Armenian of origin, converted to Islam, was a court, what is the technical word, sorry? State punch cutter, yes, that's what I wanted to say. State punch cutter, this is the 1890s, meaning the Ottoman Empire is really, really declining right now. It's very unpopular at the time. People are fleeing and disagreeing with the Ottoman stronghold. It was a very big territory to keep power over. Like it went from Turkey to Morocco, maybe even also went a bit more into Europe at some point, and then south to the Levant. They couldn't keep up with the different local cultures. So I drifted. So Mohandissian did something exquisite. This is so true to the script. It's amazing, and it's printed. It's movable type. Of course, there is one downside, which is it's exactly like calligraphy, which means in type you kind of want it to be drifting away and having some form of contemporary, in that moment, or any moment, voice that has to do with the reason why you're making a font, like for its use or what we know. But anyway, it doesn't mean that this exercise is not of value. I'll show you why. This is movable type again. So how the hell, this is a medial letter. How did he get this flag to go all the way into the shape of, these are 2 letters. So yeah, the 2 letters you understand, okay, you can make one block from them. But of course, what you don't know is that this is a toothed letter, so it'll have 2 dots, 3 dots above, or 1 dot, or 2 dots below, or 1 dot below, which means that for one same group or body shape, you will have to have many different lead forms to fit all the types of letters. Now I kind of wish I had a bit slight introduction to Arabic or Arabic 101. Sorry if I'm confusing you. But yeah, so this is pretty amazing. Even better than, I think, the interpretation visual, better than the digital model. And it comes, Mohandisian comes after a long line of like tests. And this is a slide from my friend Onur Yazıcıgil, who researched him thoroughly. A couple of his slides I took and put them here. Thank you, Onur. So Mutafarrika, Bogos Arabian came after him, and then Mohandisian, who really thought about also point size, like point size and optical size, which also, this is the 1890s. We still don't design in Arabic type thinking about point size and optical size or grades or all of these nice typographic details that you want to think about because we want to happily read text and happily see text. So therefore, his 24-point is going to be more higher in contrast, more complex. His 18-point is more simplified, slightly lower in contrast. And his 6-point totally goes flat over here. You see this group of letters where you have a cascading connection. He created, he brought in from another script, he borrowed a mechanism, and now it's flat. So I think this is brilliant for that moment. I'm proud to say that I own one of his books. And this is the texture a bit of the typeface, which it's a very beautiful classical texture. You do need a lot of interline or leading to make this a pleasant or possible page because you have a lot of low descent with high ascent. And then also he was copied, and a lot of people faked their name. A lot of printers were like they would sign Mohandisian because he was of course famous for having done what he's done, and for a while until Onur researched him, it was a big mystery on what are the sorts, like what was he using in terms of metal. So Onur figured it out. I actually don't know. I'm curious to hear his PhD about it. So Grandjean, Mutafarrika, Mohandisian. Oh, he actually, by the way, also did something very smart, which or like the bit more modern, which is Arabic being super slanted. He straightened it up a bit. So that's actually a divergence from the script. So he did do something extra. And then I have this illustration because then people were thinking we need faster work to work faster. And so one of the thoughts to work faster was to make, instead of a human, a robot, steam-powered. But instead, we got the linotype machine. So Mergenthaler linotype did this 22-point Arabic. And in the linotype machine, you have a keyboard, a magazine, the side case, magazines. Oh, yeah, they're here. There are 2, each of 90. So you could fit 180 sorts. But the Arabic linotype, I'll get to that later. So how does linotype get to Arabic? 1 second. More Lebanese people. I guess I talk about, from the Lebanese perspective, we were very involved in the field. I'm Lebanese, by the way. And of course, you kind of study, or I believe that in your work, it's nice in a way to focus on local identity, not ignoring other cultures, of course, but well. So this is Naoum Mukarzil. He is an emigre to the US. At 26, he left Lebanon, and it was 1890 also. So the moment when Mohandisian was still working. And he wanted to be a journalist, but as you are taught in Lebanon, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. So he studied medicine, but he didn't like it. And he's like, okay, no, I'm going to change. I'm going to be a journalist, and founded a weekly that became bi-weekly that became weekly paper called Al-Huda, The Guidance. And Al-Huda used to publish about national Lebanese thought because they were really involved in that moment in movements against the Ottoman Empire and freeing Lebanon. And then the French came. That worked. And his brother Saloum then took over. And Saloum was the one who had the idea, oh, let's make a font. And let's work quicker, because Al-Huda was a 20-page publication, which means it's pretty thick. So it was a lot of work to typeset it weekly or bi-weekly. So this is the first Al-Huda publication in 1898, 124 years ago. And with the linotype font that I will show you now. I can skip this, I think, yes. So it was a very proud moment for them, because for the first time, it was a non-Latin font that is made and typeset by a machine, that could be typeset by a machine. So this 22-point Arabic. It doesn't come with it does not come with issues. It does stay true to the script pretty closely, surprisingly, with the massive reduction of sorts, because it was 89 sorts per magazine plus 3 movable pieces. So you had like a bit more than the normal set would allow. But then connections were the same. Just spacing was impossible. Like what Mohandisyan had solved, this would kill. This is one word, by the way. So you have so that was one major drawback of the linotype machine, but speed and time and made it kind of very attractive. Mohandisyan, linotype, and Hafiz Osman again. And then at some point in further years, 1959, came the notion of simplified Arabic. So instead of having one shape per position, plus some extras for the extras you need in Arabic, thanks to another Lebanese man, Kamil Mroué, I forgot before the time, like, is it Kamal or Kamil? It's okay. Mroué went down to 2. Is this a good thing? Is this not a good thing? Again, in younger years, like, what did you do? The shapes could have been better. If it's fine, but why are the shapes so ugly? Also, like, so as a designer, I always struggled with the idea of, is it okay? Is it okay that we made so many concessions for so many technologies that slowly the script lost its soul? Is that okay, or is it this is how we evolve in the world, and then we need to find solutions that fit whatever's possible, because these machines are expensive, they are necessary. It's the same with the computer. Is it okay that we still work kind of in this retrograde way, and we still work with character in a box for a machine that's very powerful? Why are we working like that still? Because, well, it involves money and time and people and powerful companies. So these were always questions, like, is there anything to do about it as well? And so I have this little documentary of the university I attended, and to me it explained a lot. I'm going to show you 16 minutes of it. It's a bit of a divergence, but it explains a lot of what was going on somehow in a parallel world, on how nations get to, like, how missionary people arrive, and how things evolve in an area, and then how decisions are made. So, well, I have this little interlude because I thought it was appropriate.
The year is 1856. Reverend Daniel Bliss and his wife Abby finally sail into Beirut harbor after a long and arduous trip begun in America. Driven by faith, Bliss is ready to embrace his new life in the service of the Protestant mission, spreading the word of Christ in the region. 19th century Lebanon, with a shoreline framing East Mediterranean waters, is still part of Greater Syria and a major element of the sprawling Ottoman Empire. The Bliss couple joins Americans seeking to preach the Protestant gospel to Christians, Jews, Muslims, and Druze. European languages and translations of classical works are gaining currency in Beirut, opening new avenues of discovery. Curiosity about Western thought is on the rise, and intellectuals begin seeking ways to adapt these ideas to an Arab context, while asserting the need for an independent identity. As the 19th century progresses, the missionaries' goals gradually shift. They realize that religious conversion starts with education. Bliss settles in Su' al-Gharb in the region of Alay. The boarding school he runs is such a success that W.M. Thompson, head of the American mission in the Middle East, calls for founding a college for higher learning and medical training in Beirut. Bliss accepts the challenge. He sets his mind to raise the funds needed and sails to America to launch a campaign to collect $100,000 in the midst of the American Civil War. Bliss meets William E. Dodge, known as one of the merchant princes of Wall Street. Dodge is so impressed by Bliss's character and determination, he helps Bliss to raise the funds he needs from Protestant communities in America and in England. In 1864, the state of New York officially charters the Syrian Protestant College, SPC. In December 1866, the Syrian Protestant College opens its doors in a residential area of Za el-Blat to the first generation of 16 students. The first professors, all missionaries, perfect the Arabic language to spread the word of God. They teach all subjects in Arabic. A fundamental part of the college is established in 1867, the medical school. Dr. Cornelius van Dyck is one of the first medical professors, along with Dr. George Post, the first to sedate a human patient in Lebanon, and Dr. John Wardebet, professor of anatomy and physiology. The first class graduates in 1870. Soon enough, the need to expand beyond the small rented space becomes pressing. Bliss and David Stewart Dodge, son of William, discover the ideal location. The plot is near the tip of Ras Beirut, a rocky headland pushing out to the Mediterranean Sea, only accessible by cactus lanes and stony donkey paths. The founders buy the desolate patch of land for $8,000. In 1871, William E. Dodge, now the treasurer of SPC's Board of Trustees, lays the cornerstone for College Hall. At the inauguration of College Hall, President Bliss proclaims the institution's principles and high ideals, defining its ethos for generations to come. This college is for all conditions and classes of men, without regard to color, nationality, race, or religion. But it will be impossible for anyone to continue with us long without knowing what we believe to be the truth and our reasons for that belief. The SPC is founded to offer young men access to modern, Western-style higher education, along with a devotion to Christian ideals. Dr. Cornelius van Dyck, SPC's professor of internal medicine and astronomy, initiates the building of an observatory. Van Dyck is assisted by Faris Nimmer. They keep meticulous records of meteorological data and telegraph daily reports to imperial observatories in Constantinople and Vienna. The work of the missionaries laid a foundation for the scientific discoveries in the region. In 1882, the college faces its first existential crisis, one that sets in motion a 50-year struggle over the evangelical purpose of the education at SPC. In his commencement address, Professor Edwin Lewis, a chemist, argues that Charles Darwin's theories of evolution are based on sound science, and praises him as one of the greatest scientists of his time. The speech flies in the face of established religious doctrine and what college authorities consider as unquestionable orthodoxy. Lewis is forced to resign 6 months into the affair.
The thing is that just the mention of Darwin was considered at that time, as many things are, a great scandal and something unacceptable to the faith, etc., etc.
Pillars of the Protestant community see Darwin's theory of evolution as opposing the beliefs on which the SPC was founded. After the departure of Lewis, professors sharing his convictions walk out in a dramatic show of solidarity. Among them are Dr. Cornelius van Dyck and his son William, who had shared Darwin's teachings in their SPC classes.
The principle that a professor should not be allowed to expose an existing theory and talk about it at the university was anathema to the spirit of the university. And that's what the university does. He felt that he could not continue to work in a place like that.
The clash of ideologies shocks the faculty and student body, leaving its mark on the college. Many send in angry petitions in solidarity with Lewis. The students rebel. 13 are expelled.
This was the beginning of the stirrings, really, of the student movement that eventually took on many shapes over the century that followed, and the authority of the university was questioned.
The dramatic walkout by some of the founding professors at the medical school strips the college of most of its lecturers who can teach in Arabic, a turning point for the SPC. The disaster diminishes the importance of Arabic as the principal language of instruction and the role of local lecturers. English, already used in literature classes, starts to become the main language for teaching. The Board of Trustees imposes a declaration of principles requiring new professors to affirm their adherence to the faith. In 1902, after 36 years as president, Bliss retires and is succeeded by his son Howard, who ushers in a fresh perspective committed to securing a more modern approach. By then, student enrollment is over 600, and the college campus boasts a dozen stately buildings. The faculty has expanded to 40, and that same year, the college buys a property across the street from campus to establish a 200-bed hospital. Howard Bliss abolishes the Declaration of Principles, and at the outset of World War I, religious study becomes optional, shifting the college further away from its evangelical Protestant roots towards a secular institution of higher education.
What is the relationship of God and man? It's an exploration, really, of our common humanity. And that's what's the focus of a true liberal arts curriculum.
After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapses. France takes over Greater Syria as a mandate power and divides it. Modern-day Lebanon is carved out by joining Beirut province and Mount Lebanon to surrounding regions. The British draw Iraq's borders, pledge to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine, and split up their mandate there, creating Jordan. In 1920, the college formally changes its name to the American University of Beirut, and abandons once and for all its founder's missionary goal. Regardless of national origin, faculty members are given equal institutional rights as their American counterparts. Enrollment swells to unprecedented levels, as a small step taken 15 years earlier is about to blossom into a historical milestone in the world of higher education.
Short, since I realized
The first group of women joins AUB in 1905 in the School of Nursing, the first in the region.
so women arrived too, which is good. And apparently the boys in the classroom, they were like, we're going to be taught and told what to do by women? They thought it was so weird. And they had a hard time accepting that, but pointer. So the reason why I show this is that it shows kind of in a context everything that comes and has to do with language and colonization, and the reason why you, for example, why in Lebanon we drop a lot of the Arabic speaking and writing. It was replaced by French and English. and which doesn't happen in other places, in the Arab world at least, or in Persia. So it's a lot of these kind of like how it really happened on the ground. So that's why I took a little extract to show it. And well, after the creation of the state of Israel, in that moment, a few years later, 1975, Lebanon gets into a major civil war that lasted about 20 years, and this bridges to Thomas Milo, who actually was in the Dutch UNIFIL in 1982 in South Lebanon, trying to tell Palestinian suicide bombers not to do it. And he drove back this Jeep. You can see this is Dutch UNIFIL. This is Thomas, and this is Miriam, his partner. Together with Miriam's brother, they are Decotype. They're a Dutch company of three, linguist and scholar, designer, and Peter is an aeronautical engineer, so he wrote the program. They invented the technology because, well, while Tom was in the south of Lebanon, he was a linguist there and a captain in the army, and he wrote a book for his fellow UN force soldiers that Miriam designed, and this book is about colloquial Lebanese and how you use it on the ground and what you need, because they need to talk to people, of course. So this is transliteration, the Dutch, and this page is a joke because it's all about, this is more costly, this is cheaper, and you know the Dutch, they love to talk about this and they love to make it cheaper. And this is the Arabic, and Tom, being quite observant, he looked at this, I like to show for the donkeys because they're one of my favorite animals. He looked at the Arabic, well, this, and he thought, huh? This is not what I see on the ground. Like he was seeing calligraphy, writing, and even on the trucks of the Lebanese army, you have a script called Ruka that I will show in a bit. And how is this printed matter or printed font for printing different than what I'm seeing around me? And well, this is an inheritance of simplified Arabic. The closest digital font is Giza Pro. This is, so if I make it cleaner, it's this. And Decotype actually made it their life mission to make a layout engine, so an engineering system to produce text that where they made fonts that would respect the model, the calligraphic model. So they did, this is all the fonts they've created. They're very true to the script. So this is pure Nasr, Nastaliq, which is the Persian flavor, or in the eastern parts of the Arab world, it's what they use. This is the Pakistani version of Nastali. They're like a tighter and a bit more bold. Ruka, which is an Ottoman, the last invented script, calligraphic script. And this is a revival of a typeface in Cairo. And this is a simple project that I will skip. And so from that, they were able to create this, and actually a pretty they're crazy. They're just crazy because they devoted their life to fight big powers, big tech, the tech industry, and created this system where you actually using parts of letters, so little pieces, you have heads and joints and dots, and in order to produce the text in a way that is faithful to all the possibilities of Arabic text. Unlike digital type that where you have full characters in a box that have to fit in a box, and then you have the dots, of course, but they're just full separate characters. So they did it differently. It's kind of simplifying Arabic in a different way. It looks like there's more parts, but actually this script, the Nastaliq, and this is the Pakistani version, it's a very complex script to get right with OpenType technology that we all use. But this is the font that they have, so no character is visible whatsoever. It's just really just elements that they program, which is the crazy part. I will show you later. using a lot of data sheets, like in Excel, manually. It's not automatic yet, unfortunately. In order to get to this text, you have rules of how the computer is going to understand which part to grab and what for which letter in which moment. In OpenType, it would take these many glyphs to do this and to make this shaping happen, and not perfectly. Spacing is always a problem in OpenType. Word spacing with these kind of scripts. And Decotype Nastaliq is just a small collection of elements, which this was the reason why I moved to the Netherlands. It was my dream, kind of. I had also seen that. Like, why don't we think of a different machine? Like, what's wrong with people? But it's a bit harder than we think. So this is Miriam Somers, who is not as credited as Tom is, but she makes the fonts and she sits there making the data, which takes hours and hours and years and years. I made one font, one style in this technology. It took me 5 years, almost full time. The design took 6 months. Data took all the rest of the time, which was... So Miriam has the patience of, I don't know, as big as the ocean. And this is Miriam explaining to me, helping me out with the logic of my typeface. This is one character where we're trying to, anyway, dig through our brains to make it work. I asked her once, what's your favorite project? And she said, oh, it's the Ruka. And I said, why? This is Ruka. Because it's such a simple script. And it's what we learn in the Levant, how to write. We learn with Ruka, and when you're learning Arabic calligraphy, you start with Ruka because then you can actually continue. Other scripts are much harder, much harder. It's really impossible to make them nice. And Ruka is actually a very popular style. It goes on everywhere. And this is a truck, and this is a Kulthum lyrics. And this is a snack bar where you have, chicken and sandwiches and whatnot. Nastaliq, different. And it goes also in Egyptian movie posters, like it's super funky. So Miriam and Tom invented this first typeface for the first moment of their technology, which is called Decotype ACE, Advanced Composition Engine. They made these parts to make the Ruka happen. And this was a breakthrough in that moment. This is 1985. So it could have gone, I think could have taken off had they been a bit better at marketing, but they're not. And it's okay. It's the way of the world. And this is the new Ruka that Miriam made quite a few years later. So that's a small, brief story of Decotype and kind of people who want to go out of the box and who believe in making things different and right for others. And yeah, it's just now this technology, it's just not adopted by the world. It's hard to get it adopted. And I don't know what's harder, because it could be integrated within OpenType technology, but then you need to teach people how to use it, you need to automate it, and you also need acceptance from the big tech to actually adopt it. But they still work on it, so who knows? I do think that this is the future of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, but never mind. I resigned from that part of my life. Toshi Omagari actually made a Ruka recently, and this is a claquette, and I thought, in order to shift into the modern world, I'll show you this. Ruka can be really fun, and you can interpret it in many ways, even though it's very hard, because it's very simple. And this is the work of one of our students in the first Arabic Type Design Beirut programs. He took truck lettering, Haris Basil. So I'll do a little brief interlude about my experience with Decotype technology. So I made this font. And I'm saying this because I showed this in London before the Corona. It was my last talk, I think, before Corona. And I was having an anticlimax. And I said it on stage, and I'm like, was I supposed to do that? Like, is that okay? And yeah, well, I'm an emotional speaker, so I will, you do what you can. This is Falak. Falak is based on Nasr. And I wanted to stay true to all the rules because I wanted to know them. Because I believe that when you know it, when you know these rules, then you're free. Then you're free to play, and you're free to. Then you know, I can choose these ones and not these ones. But I wanted it to be more modern. To a lot of people, this looks flourished and super complex. But to me, I see it as modern. It's a low contrast, no slant or 1 degree slant nasr that is thinner than it normally should be. Nasr is a bit thicker, has a bit bolder feel. It's designed for poetry, thanks to all the elongation possibilities and the layout possibilities for a designer with Decotype technology. You can set poetry in a really nice way, which you cannot do in OpenType. The downside of this project was the data. Normally, this could happen automatically, but they didn't get anybody to automate them because Miriam never complained. And she admitted that when we were working. She's like, I don't know why I never. I'm like, you should have, Miriam. So it's how many lines? 6,415 lines hand typed. This is very complex data, actually. It's not just we're copying things. It's, there's these groups, and anyway, there's a top secret I cannot mention, and they have to work together. So yeah, but it gives you a very simple 500 glyphs. One font can do everything Nasr can do and not. I also broke rules, and this can be implemented, obviously. And I made an OpenType version. This is a reduced version, and this is the OpenType version. It still works. I will finish it one day with the bold. The regular is done, and hopefully publish it eventually. But when I was here in London last time, I was like, I don't want to see this project anymore. I hate this project. Why did I spend all my life? I spent 15 years of my life going towards this goal of working on Arabic with parts, believing in this minimal piece of script where it can be the font, and thinking, this is logical. The whole world should do this, even in Latin. What's wrong with people? We're overworking. But yeah, so it took a very long time to be like, okay, I completed the project. I cannot call myself a type designer because I'm still getting graphic design projects, and this is how I live. But well, now, thanks to YouTube, things changed, and now it was a moment in my career where I was like, okay, I learned a lot, and I cannot go forward in that direction because in the end, you make a font and you want people to use it. It's so sad that I cannot even use my own font. I can test it a bit, but this text, for example, I hand set manually, like all of it. So I can't even make a poster. It takes too much time. So yeah, OpenType, or we have to resign sometimes to current possibilities. And I have 5 more minutes to go. Also, one of my major anticlimaxes, the main reason is that I compared the ACE version and the OpenType version, and I thought, no way. I thought it would make such a big difference. But obviously, in a way, then I thought, but it's logical. The layout engine is not the design. Like, the design is the master, it's what we see. We don't see the layout engine working. There's a difference in the texture. Like, this is much more Arab organic in a way. You could see it, it's a bit more compact. And you can also, it's a bit tight. You can play with the word spacing. I could have opened it up a bit more. I could take this design to here, but this is more mechanical. So there are subtle differences, but then when you zoom in, there are bigger differences, much bigger. But still, who zooms in? We are reading. So for me, this was my major moment of, I wasted 15 years of my life. They're not wasted. Mohandisian, not that I'm comparing myself, but just as a showcase, me. and Hafiz Osman. So just to see the range of nasakh, and you can have so many nasakhs. And I would like to end this talk with my dear friend, Kristyan Sarkis. So since we're in the modern contemporary age, Chris is also Lebanese. He is also obsessed with Arabic. He founded Typotech Arabic in collaboration with Peter Bilak a few years ago already, like 7, I think, something like that, or 5. I lose track. And I met Chris when he first presented this project at AUB. And I have to confess that the night before, I couldn't sleep because I thought, I'm going to go watch another lecture by another one of these type designers who's going to say terrible things, and I'm going to get angry. And so I got angry all night, and I couldn't sleep. When you're 20. So, and then he showed this project, which I knew. And I was like, oh, he's doing good stuff. Nice. And this is Thuraya, his KBK graduation project, where he played with the idea of cascading, and Eric van Blokland wrote a script, and Thuraya can be either on the baseline or have this slant, which now is a common thing. In the past, it was really innovative, this idea. And also his forms, they're like nice interpretations of a Diwani script. And so, yeah, to me, well, I will always praise my friend Chris. One of my favorite projects of his is, they call it a typographic trilogue. This is the work of, in Arabic, Chris, in Latin, Lara Captan, and in Tifinagh, Juan Luis Blanco. And Chris had started Kunduz, the typeface, before he was asked to join Arabic matchmaking. What was it? Yeah, in the Arabic matchmaking in the Maghrib. That is a project by Huda Abi Faris. And then they were teamed up together to create this font, which is based on the work of Al-Kandusi, 1850s calligrapher. I call it psychedelic Arabic because it's like, where did you get these forms from? Mr. Kandusi, you can see the Andalusian feel, but then he is going completely wild. He's creating his own rules, and he does have rules. Chris has studied them because he made a few variants. And yeah, so Chris played on construction variants and other and like letters, and just really nicely drawn and a really fun project. And I think lastly, I'd like to show from his work, so he's always fan of a typeface that has a good story. And Mizan is also one of them. It's making a very big type system, taking from very big, different script styles in order to create this one system. So his main font is Mizan. It's published. It's a text face based on Nasr, and then he will go to a Nastaliq version, which we are trying as an italic, because italic for Latin is a sort of just a change of script in the foundation of type, and then it drifted a bit. But so why not change the script to create a different posture? So this is the question, basically. He's not the only one asking himself that question. And then more displays and more caption, or smaller sizes, stencils. So it's going to be a fun type system. This is a bit of some Arabic with, I forgot which Latin it was paired with. Sorry, I forgot to check that. These were the sources, some of the sources that I have consulted. This is the font I have used in this publication. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone online again. And so the future is still very exciting in Arabic, and many I think the best things are yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lara. That was so fascinating, just to see the history of a language and language system I'd known very little about. So I found it so enlightening and informative, and you just make it so accessible and really entertaining as well. So thank you. We have one question so far on Zoom, which I will start with, and then if anyone else in the room has a question, I will come round with the microphone so that the people on Zoom can hear what you're saying. So the first question is, what do Arabic type designers think of Decotype ACE?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess a lot of people have their reserve. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people just see the final product, which is calligraphic fonts. I think this is mostly the misconception. And for Decotype, it's not their place to make anything modern. So I think this is really how people view it. And the fact that it's not in use makes it very unattractive for people to actually have take the initiative and go do something. Titus Nimet has, in one of they created a system where it became a bit simpler. But I think this is the general view of Decotype ACE. But I do know that people do respect the work that Thomas has done, and I do think that it's misunderstood.
Sure, thank you. Does anyone in the room have a question at all? Yes, I will come to you first.
Is there not potential in the way that Latin sort of forced a sort of technological structure onto Arabic? Surely in this system there's a potential for Latin. If you broke Latin down into its component
for any language
parts, you could do something really amazing with it. You could liberate Latin typography hugely, no?
Yeah. Just now, I think a lot of things are about timing. Yes. Any script you can go down to it's an elemental structure, which is pieces. But yeah, now the variable font format also makes it even more attractive. Like it packs things for Latin type technology, and so I think the ship went that way. But I do believe that if other cultures, like if in China, and China has a big they have a lot of glyphs necessary, very complex, and they actually work like that in pieces. And in Japan as well, they have systems where they make their stroke components, and then they make their composition, their glyph composition, and then they export the font. Then you get into the market. Will the market accept this? Do they want to re-engineer? They being in the tech industry, you need to re-engineer software, etc., to make it accessible. But definitely, you can pack Latin also the way it is. So, for example, in a Decotype font, the punctuation and numbers are in OpenType. So it's a mixture. It allows for the mixture. So it can totally integrate itself. It's just the will has to be there. That's it.
Thank you. I think there was a question back here, and then we'll come to you.
I was just wondering if a designer who uses Arabic wanted to use the Decotype system, I mean, not necessarily for setting body copy, but for headings or titles, and especially considering that getting angles in, would it be worth investigating how can you integrate it into like Adobe, or should I just do a calligraphy course?
They've integrated it in Adobe via this app or plugin called Tasmim. It's sold by Winsoft International, but I think they're stopping soon with it. I'm not sure what the ties are right now, and the fonts are not being updated, so my font is not there, for example. And you kind of want to be a foundry and just sell your font, and people can have people use it, even if it's a plugin. So this makes everything more complicated. They also made they made the engine browser-based, but only the select few, like myself, have access to places where you can compose text and lines and etc. with the fonts. So this is now, finally, after this stage, I can compose text because they made a text editor, browser-based text editor that calls the engine online. So they bypassed the app necessity So it's possible, but it's all still proprietary. Yeah. they're working on it.
Thank you. That was great. And I love that you shared Kristyan's work, because I really love his work. And it's very original, and it comes from a very authentic place. One thing I noticed you did not speak about, and I wanted to know what you think about it, is that we still have a lot of Arabic fonts created today are created to match Latin fonts. I would love to hear your thoughts about that. And is it still prevalent, or are we finally getting over it?
I think it's still prevalent, but it depends on who's asking and how you, and what they want. And often it's actually in the Middle East where they're the most, especially on the Arabian Peninsula, where they actually want the most Latinized fonts. It's very sad. And on the US West Coast, they're more open now. Like, no, we promote diversity and, and identity. So we've shifted from this Latinization into, okay, we have a need of combining texts in browsers, because we're searching and you have Latin text with other languages from all over the world coming in with Latin text, whether we like it or not. So it's an existing need for text. How we solve that is then the key. Like, where do we draw the line as designers to give in to the, to the actual shape of Latin, or where it's like, okay, there are characteristics of the Latin that you can bring into the Arabic. That doesn't necessarily mean you give away the Arabic entirely, or you completely lose the shaping. And actually, variable font format makes that more interesting, because then if you have Chinese and Arabic in one line or text, or what happens then too? Like, it's also, and we are getting into more and more this global script problem, where it's like all scripts need to work with all scripts. So that's, I think, the direction we're heading in. It's even more complex now.
But you personally, as a type designer, what is your...
Yeah. In a way, I follow what we were taught and where we learned graphic design. My teacher and mentor, Layla Musfi, taught us that, well, matchmaking, even in a relationship, like if you put two people together and you matchmake them, it just doesn't work. Like, relationships are complex, and so it's about it's about finding, creating a relationship. That's it. And this is, so for her and for me, I inherit this thought because I like it. How you put two scripts together is, how do you create that relationship? And not how do you make them a mirror of one another and look like each other, and you're going to wear the same clothes and, be the same people, which they're not. So I like Layla's take on that.
Brilliant. I think we're going to have to wrap up now, but it has been an absolutely fantastic evening. Thank you to everyone on Zoom who is tuning in from literally around the globe. We've got people in Miami, Cambridge, Florida, New York, LA, everywhere. And a huge thank you to you all for coming tonight and being with us in person this evening as well. But the biggest thanks of all go to Lara for such a brilliant evening. Before we have one round of applause, if anyone would like to join us, we're probably going to head to the Old Bell just on Fleet Street for a drink afterwards, if anyone would like to come along in person. Sorry, at home, you can't join us. Maybe crack open a beer as or a nice orange juice or something, as you get home. Shut your laptop, not get home, you're already home. Sorry, it's been a long day. But finally, I'm going to stop talking now, but a huge round of applause to Lara. You've been brilliant, and thank you all for coming. Have a great evening. Thank you.